Hi, I'm Andy from Incredible Edible Wakefield, and this is the fifth in our set of Stay Home Grow Your Own tutorials. And this time we're going to be looking at sowing headed lettuces. We have our seeds here. So headed lettuce, different from the ones we did in tutorial 1, which were salad leaves or cut and come again, in that we're going to wait until the lettuce heads up into one big lettuce rather than just taking a few leaves at a time as we would with a cut and come or salad leaf lettuce. So let's have a look at the equipment we're going to need today. First, we normally use a little seed dispenser just for tapping the seeds out. But I've showed you before, what we can use just as well is just some paper, just fold it over. I've just stapled this, and then we can use that to dispense the seeds into the compost. Need a pair of scissors just for cutting open our seed packet. We're going to need either a marker pen or a pencil for labelling up our seeds. We normally use a little sieve just for sieving the compost on top of the seeds when we've sown them, but just as good as a little colander we've got from the kitchen here. Watering, we've got this lovely little kids watering can that we normally use. Nice gentle flow you get from the rose end of that. But just as good, if you've got an old soft pop bottle or a water bottle, just fill that with water, just get a pin, pick a few holes in the top, not too many, and then you can use that just for watering. We're also going to need labels. We've been trying to get away from using the old plastic ones by using the lollipop sticks in recent times. But again, if you haven't got things at home, all we've done here, cut the bottom out of an old margarine or ice cream container, and we just, as you can see there, cut our labels out of that, and they'll do just as good. So you can see here some of the crops we did in recent weeks. We've got the tumbling tom tomatoes, the chilies done in a chopped tomato tin with a tuna tin for a saucer. Got mixed salads we did last week, and the sweet basil in the self-watering planter. All of those you can see on previous tutorials. So what else we're going to need is our containers. So how this differs from cut and come again lettuce is we're not going to need a lot of depth. So we're going to use fairly shallow containers. You could just use plant pot, use something as a saucer just to catch the water if it's on your windowsill, or you may be doing these outside this time. Other things again, use an ice cream carton or an old takeaway carton. This time what we're going to be using is old meat trays. Got one there I'm going to use as a saucer, and one we're going to use to sow the compost in, and you might not be able to see there, but I've just poked a few holes in that with some scissors, just so when we put that inside there, any watering we do into the compost, the excess water will drain through underneath, and it's an easy way to just keep your compost moist if there's some water in that bottom tray there. Into our tray, just giving that a bit of a squidge just to break it up. And then once you've done that, what I find useful is, if you've got another container similar to what you're using, size you're using, you can just use that just to tamp down and get yourself nice compact compost. Your plant's roots, for them to be able to take up the nutrients and the water, they need to be in contact with the compost. So if you turn it quite loosely, you're going to end up with gaps in between it. You might not be able to see them, but the roots will be hanging about in between the gaps and can't be in contact to start picking up those nutrients and moisture. So it's very important to make it sure it's nice and compact. Now we've got our tray there. What we're going to do now is open our seeds up. So we'll get our seed dispenser, or in this case paper there. Seeds are quite small with lettuce, so there's about 30 in there. We're going to tap those down to one end just so when we don't open them we don't lose them straight away. Go in here. So when we did the salad leaf or cut and come again, we weren't too worried about keeping the seeds separate as we sowed them, because we're not going to be doing anything later other than just picking leaves off those, and if they're close together it's not too much of a problem. With a headed one, we're going to have another stage later on where we'll be picking out these and potting them on into larger containers. So that might be, again, small plant pots or just something a bit bigger so that each seed and seedling really nice moss room to grow. But initially, we're just going to sow these around here. But to make it easier to pick these out later, what I normally do for that at that point is we've got an old fish and chip fork from the fish and chip shops that work quite well. But I'm going to try and leave a little bit of space around each seed, so that when I come to do that pricking out, there's plenty of gap round, less likely that the roots will have intermingled, and it's easy to just get one plant out at a time and pop that on into a larger container then. Trying to make sure I get a gap in between them. The ones we've got here are a headed mix, so it's not one particular variety, there's a number of different varieties, so we're going to have a nice mix of different lettuces to choose from once they're grown. But the amount of compost you want above a seed is usually about the same thickness as the seed itself, and as you can see, these are really small seeds. So all we're going to do, put a bit of compost into our sieve here. As I said before, if you haven't got a sieve, you can also use a colander. But I'm going to give those a very gentle shake. And some of the smaller compost will just start falling through now. And that's going to make sure that we've got a nice, even coverage of smaller compost particles so that our seeds aren't stuck under big lumps of compost that's going to stop them growing properly or slow them down. We're going to take our second tray here, which hasn't got holes in. As I say, we're going to use that as a bit of a saucer. We'll put that one inside there. As I say, we've got holes just to make sure you're not going to drown them. Once you start that, there we are. And just give them a nice dousing. It's a combination of the temperature, the darkness, and moisture that's going to start your seed growing. So first of all, these need a pretty good water so they can start to suck in that water. Right, now I'm just going to add a label. Sown. And we can now just put that on a windowsill somewhere. It's going to get a little bit of sunlight. Just be careful on your really hot days that as your seedlings start to come through, it's too hot, they can actually get scorched, and all your effort will be wasted. So keep somewhere where they're going to get a bit of sun, but not too much. And actually, when they're planted out, they prefer dappled light rather than direct sunlight, even though they're a sort of a summer plant. Okay, and that's been it for our tutorial on lettuce headed mixed. So remember, stay home and grow your own.